A big mistake that investors make is failing to change their approach when their life changes. What got you here may not get you there. And what I mean by that is as you move through your life, your money should have a different job at each phase. Think about it this way. If you're a business owner, like a lot of our clients, you might run your business differently on day one than you will 10 years later. At first, your main focus is on growth and growing the business as much as possible. Eventually, you're getting to the point where now you want consistent cash flow. And then the third phase you get into is when you start thinking about succession planning, or maybe selling your business, or what will happen to my business, God forbid something happens to me. And financial planning works the exact same way. The strategies that you use when you're building wealth and growing your money are different from the strategies you use when you're living off of that money, and that money is now supporting you. And eventually your focus will shift to, as I said with a business owner, what is the plan for my money when I'm gone? And this is something that we should all think about. So there's 3 stages that I say of our investment life. That's accumulation, distribution, and transfer. A lot of people will say legacy. I don't really love legacy. I always look at that as after I'm gone, and transfer takes place. You make those decisions while you're still alive and healthy. So these are the 3 stages that we all should move throughout our life. And I'm gonna break it down for you. So the first phase that we go through is accumulation. Most people will spend the most amount of time in this phase, typically between 20, 30, 40 years. So accumulation is when you're growing your money. Your biggest goal is to grow the biggest pot of money as possible. This is when you're still working, maxing out your retirement accounts, putting excess money into taxable accounts. Your biggest asset here is your income and your ability to stay disciplined and invest that money. Your other asset is time and how your money compounds over a long period of time. The longest phase of the 3 stages you go through is accumulation. Simplest way to look at it is when you're growing your money. And again, your biggest focus here is on growth, not income. As I said, you could spend 30 or 40 years in this first phase, and that is the foundation for where everything is built going forward. The second phase that you go through is distribution. This can happen when you stop working and when work now becomes optional for you and you want to keep working, or you decide that you're going to retire and stop working. But this is the phase when you start drawing on your investments. This is when you stop feeding your investment accounts and they start feeding you. This doesn't mean that you go and just liquidate all of your accounts on day one, unless you're maybe going to buy a piece of real estate or have other plans. But typically this is when you're going to withdraw a small percentage of your account each year for a long period of time to supplement your income. At this point, growth is still important, but cash flow becomes equally, if not more important than simply growing your money to the biggest number possible. We've covered this in other videos that the goal is not always to just get the biggest amount of money in your account, although through the growth phase we want to obviously grow our money as much as possible, but it's really about getting to a point where we can start drawing on our money, whether we're working or retired, so it can now pay us. At this point, taxes become a much bigger factor, and tax planning. Withdrawal approaches of which account you're going to withdraw money from, that comes into play as well. You want to gift money to your kids, and I see more and more with clients lately, they want to gift money to their kids while they're still living and while their kids are maybe 30, 40 years old, starting their own life. Instead of just saying, yeah, when something happens to me, the money goes to my kids, but the reality is that might not be for another 20 or 30 years. So this is the phase where you go through gifting strategies, where you go through more and more tax planning. Maybe you look more at Roth conversions if you're someone that just stopped working and your income is down, you want to do the conversions in those years. But again, the distribution phase, hopefully it's long, hopefully you're drawing on the money for a long period of time, but it's the second phase that you're going to move through. To sum it up so far, accumulation is when you're trying to grow your money as much as possible, and then distribution is when you start to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And what eventually happens is you start asking a third question. What is the plan for my money when I'm gone, if God forbid something happens to me. I call it the transfer phase. A lot of people will refer to it as legacy. We're gonna call it the transfer phase. This is when you are smart about your money and you strategically figure out your plans for the money that you've saved up. It's not only for the ultra wealthy, everyone has something that they're leaving behind. To me, growth is always important, but the main focus now is starting to think about what is going to happen with your money after you are gone. This is when you want to make sure that you have the right beneficiaries in order. Who's going to inherit your accounts? This is when it's good to sit with an estate attorney while you're still alive and healthy and coherent, and make sure you have certain estate planning documents taken care of, like a will, power of attorney, a medical proxy. No one wants to overlook this phase, and then God forbid something does happen to you, and you leave your loved ones at a tough time because something just happened to you, to sort through all of this. Smart planning is making sure you take care of this while you're still alive and healthy. So naturally, the transfer phase overlaps the distribution phase. A lot of people will do it in their 50s and 60s. That's a good time to start doing this. To sum it up, accumulation is about building, distribution is about enjoying, and transfer is about passing your money on. So the key and the takeaway is to recognize which phase you're currently in, and to make sure that your approach and the way that you think and your strategies align best for that phase that you're currently in. And if you recognize whether you're in the accumulation phase, distribution phase, or the transfer phase, your financial decisions in general will become a lot easier to make.